Hello everyone, welcome back to the Composable Commerce podcast, where we talk everything headless commerce and we cover business benefits along with technical challenges that come with implementing headless and API first solutions. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the detailed business benefits of API oriented architectures, why they're better than monolithic, where they might fall short. And we're just going to be giving more tangibles, I guess, than usually what we find online is just fluffware about development, right? So having an API first digital commerce system allows for greater levels of expansion that were previously impossible with monolithic systems. So these business benefits can largely be boiled down into like two separate buckets, basically.
Yes.
We have the benefits that we get with development.
Yes, it's one is the development and the second one is the integration.
Right. And so for development, let's start with development, then we'll move on into how that helps with integrating two systems.
Yeah, so if we talk about the monolithic systems, so it's a single stack system, right? So if we take an example of the Magento and the developer wants to do any changes on the front end side. So on the front end side, if the developer do the changes on the front end side, so he should have the knowledge on the business side, also on the business logic side, and also on the underlying code and the database which are connected with that feature or which he wants to update or do the changes on that. So there is a dependency you can see on the front end and the business logic and the underlying code and the database. So he has to be professional, or he should have the experience on all this side. So he should be skilled on all this side.
And I imagine because you're dealing with such fragile pieces of the framework at that point, what is that like? If you have like a bad team, what would you end up with?
Yeah, right. If we have the bad developers or which are not skilled, so definitely there are chances that they can corrupt the system and they can create so many bugs which can create so many problems to the system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would take basically a perfectly good system and bring it down to its knees because you're dealing with stuff that's very beyond a lot of people's actual understanding of how it works. Yeah, so now that we've understood how we work with the monolithic and what the challenges of working with monolithic architectures are when we develop our interaction layers on it, so what does having an API first system change within that? How does that?
Yeah, so API oriented architecture is very different from the monolithic. So if we talk about the API oriented architecture, in this we have a separate system. So if we take an example of the Magento, and if the developer wants to do any changes or do the development on that side, so the front end is different and the back end is different in the API oriented architecture. So if we want to have any change on the front end side, so we need the developer who have skilled on the front end side, who understand the APIs and can do the development on the front end side.
So that person would be skilled in kind of like JavaScript, HTML, CSS.
Yes, we don't need the developer who has a skill on the which you have mentioned all these skills. Apart from that, with the business logic side and the architecture side and the database side. So we need the developer who has skilled on the front end side only.
Right, and so that helps us because now we're using APIs. We previously mentioned that if you work directly in the monolith, you have to deal with the possibility that maybe your team kind of screws up somewhere and creates bugs. So now because you're using APIs don't let you do those things. So you're like really minimizing the amount of things you're going to screw up.
So yes, I completely agree with you on this, and the developer has to do the development on the certain side. They don't need to do any changes on the backend system or the other system which are connected by APIs. So definitely there are minimum chances of bugs also which can be created from developer side.
This also, using API first systems allows you to use more modern technologies too, which is if you go directly and build right into Magento or any other monolith system, you are stuck with the technology that they're built on and the front end layer that they're built on. But if you use these API first systems, you can like quickly jump to different front end technologies that are coming up. 5 years ago, nobody was using JavaScript. And so if your system was developed 5 years ago, you're stuck with that.
Yes. So it's very necessary for the retailers also to understand these things so that they can be updated with the market and the trends which are there. And definitely if we talk about the 5 years ahead, so that they can have this architecture so that they can be updated and they can compete with the market.
Right, and now that's a really great overview of how we treat development in monolithic
Yes.
systems and how that's different from APIs and what great advantages we get with APIs. So that's more of like when you build interaction layers. So what's the difference when we are talking about system integration? So I want to connect my Magento system or my whatever monolith system to maybe a new marketplace that's popping up.
If we talk about the monolithic architecture, so in that system, if we want to do an integration, so it's very complicated because the developer has to have knowledge around the services side and how they can.
A lot of what we talked about with the development of the front end thing, right?
Yes. So these are the things which are carried over here. And apart from this, integration, in a nutshell, I would say that integration is very difficult in the monolithic side for the developers also, and for the maintenance also. Because if the team do any changes or update anything on the monolithic system, non single stack system, so there are chances that the integration is also affected, because they are the underlying code and the database which are dependent on the development side.
And so moving on to how integration management changes when we go from monolithic to API first architectures, I imagine a lot of the challenges of monolithic carry over from what we discussed for development side, right? Like where the developers have to know about database business logics and stuff like
code,
that.
Yes.
What are the other differences that we're seeing with API first? Like what are challenges that are of the past now?
So yeah, the major concern if we talk about the integration side, it's the maintainability.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we want to do the changes in the monolithic systems and which are integrated with the third parties, so there are fair chances that if we do any changes in the system, so as there are dependencies, very much dependencies on the underlying code also and the database also, and if we do any integrations, so there are fair chances that the changes done in the system can affect the integrations also.
So meaning like, imagine I am a person who has a shop on a monolithic system and I have integrations with a shipping provider and
the payment
gateway and a marketplace.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the person who I'm using as for my monolithic system updates their whole their framework, and certain fields and business logics change. Since it's not API first, now all of my integrations that are directly hooked into those business logics that were there before, now those integrations are all broken. I have to go through and update all those integrations again.
So developer has to see all the integration points, the touch points, which are integrated with the central system. So they need to check all the systems, and they have to see that these are working properly or not.
Right. And so with an API first, we would do what instead? How does that change it?
So in the API first, they are not that dependencies that if we update any central system, so there are not chances that the integrated third-party integrations are also affected, because these are connected by APIs.
So that level of abstraction yields or allows you to not have to worry about core level changes, because those APIs are still going to in and out the same pieces of data.
Yes. It's all about exchanging the data so that the integration can be seamless. So if we have any changes on the central system or the central system is updated, so yes, these are the changes or the updations are not affecting the integrations.
Right. Another, before we move on from, I think that's like the majority of the issues with integrating with monolithic systems. One big thing that is, if you have a headless system and it's like a publicly listed APIs, the amount of integrations that can be built for that are significantly higher, because the integrations aren't kind of business to business case things. Anybody can go look at your APIs, build an integration, and you can much more quickly develop this ecosystem of extensions for your platform.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and just to kind of put a cap on all of this, we should, I think, quickly run through what major benefits we talked about for having API-first solutions, basically, the real tangible reasons that businesses should use this, other than, you can be more creative, like, we get it.
Yeah.
Basically, it opens you up to like this larger talent pool, because you're no longer looking for people who are jack of all trades. You're looking for people who are specialized in specific pieces of technology.
Yes. And if we talk about the second bullet, it's like it reduces the time and the cost.
Yeah, because you're no longer looking at such vast pieces of skills at once. You can reduce. You have more pieces that are more reusable, which means
Yes.
your go live times are shorter. And also, we talked about maintainable integrations. So this
Yes.
is going to help you in the long run and the short term, because you're not architecting this API solution if you want to go with it. Because if you have a monolithic system and there's no APIs out there for you, if you're going to do an integration, you need APIs. So the first step you're going to do is find somebody who's basically a master in the monolithic Magento, for example, who's a master in that system, and then they're going to look at your business needs, architect this API framework that really should be done by the people who created the system.
Yes.
So you're looking at severely super skilled people, which
Yes.
maintainability, it's not reusable. It's just really hard to deal with,
Yes.
and it just opens you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. So I completely agree with you on this, and it's like doing the customization on the center system.
Yeah.
And definitely we need a good skilled developers who have knowledge of the full architecture and the database and the code level
Yeah.
and the service level. So definitely it's very difficult for the retailers to bear that cost,
Mm-hmm.
and the time is also involved in this, because it's the competition. There is a high competition in the market,
Mm-hmm.
and there are chances that by the time they update or they onboard any feature, it will be obsolete.
Yeah, I like that point that you brought up. Like, capitalism is going to take care of the whole situation, where it's going to bring costs down because more people are able to participate in the whole market.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, so that about wraps it up for this week's episode and all the details of what makes Headless so great for us. Not for us, but for brands.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening in, everybody, and we'll see you guys in the next episode of the Composable Commerce podcast.
Yes.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.